Hello, class. My name is Patrick Long, and I'm here today to talk to you guys about everything I learned this last 7 weeks in our class. It's been such a pleasure getting to learn so much about culture, and different culture than mine. When I was deciding in the beginning of our time in class of what culture I wanted to explore, I thought I wanted to think a little bit outside the box of a culture I've never actually um, researched before, which is the Native American culture. And I learned so much about their culture, their language, how they interact with people, um, how I have always kind of looked at a Native American culture just by the media and what we see on television and television shows and movies, and they seem like a very um, uh, like a native type of bunch of people that are always trying to fight with cowboys, and um, they actually are a very peaceful community and believe a lot in coming together. And it was fascinating to learn a lot about them. So I'm going to go through with you guys what I've learned, including um, including about their culture and their language and everything else. So, um, something that I thought was amazing was that there are about 566 American Indian and Alaska Native tribes in America that are recognized. And although there are so many, they all have such differences within them. And and that goes for any type of culture. You have the culture of Irish or the culture of Italian, and there's so many different languages and food and traditions, and not one is like the other. So it was interesting to read up about them. Um, One thing I thought was fascinating was the language. There are many different languages within the Native American culture, and some are spoken still today, Navajo being one of the most popular. There are actually still classes where you can learn how to speak Navajo. Besides Navajo, they do speak English. On a reservation in the Navajo reservation, there are broadcasts every single day in English and Navajo. There are certain universities in the south west type area around New Mexico and Arizona that teach Navajo. Um, and I think one of the most interesting facts that I've learned about the Navajo language is that um, the last Star Wars movie, the Star Wars The Force Awakens, not the most current one, The Last Jedi, was released in obviously English and Spanish and other languages, but Navajo was actually one of them as well, which I thought was very fascinating. Um, Language within a culture is so much more important than what people actually give it. When people think culture, they think, I think the one thing that people think right away is food, because everybody loves food. But language is one of the most, if not the most important, because it's the base of everything within their culture. The world every day is becoming more diverse, and it is important now to be more bilingual than ever. Um, you know, um, Being bilingual shouldn't be, a chore for someone. It should be something that is embraced, because being bilingual, you can learn so much more about other cultures and other people, um, and it's amazing. I mean, during the research, I found that over 2 million people identify um, in America as American Indian, and over 70% of them speak English. So over 70% um, speak English and put English as their language. And we have to be more open when we go to other places across seas, of that maybe they don't all speak English, but we can try to learn or simple words to have an effective communication with those people across seas. Um, One of the most fascinating stories that I learned while researching about American Indians and conflict was a story about a young woman by the name of Shaseen Littlefeather. And she came up because I was actually, I'm a big movie buff. I love going to the movies. I love watching the Academy Awards. And I remember watching a video a long time ago of an American Indian woman accepting the award on behalf of Marlon Brando. Now, Marlon Brando, most of you might not know, played one of the most iconic people in film ever, and that was in the movie The Godfather, which went on to win a Best Picture award, and he actually won Best Actor in a Motion Picture that year for his performance in that movie. But Marlon Brando was someone who was very culturally diverse and loved diversity and celebrated diversity, and he saw problems within the film industry and the Native American community. So Sachin took the stage at the Academy Awards and read a very brief letter that she actually read later on in the night that was a lot more detailed, on behalf of Marlon, deciding that he was going to refuse the award that night because of the treatment of American Indians by the film industry. He would say that the lead roles depicting Indians were given to white actors, and he also said that a lot of American Indians that were on set of movies weren't always treated as well as the other actors. When she went up on stage, she was booed a lot. There were people in the audience that obviously clapped for her because they understood what she was going through, and you could see she was in conflict. She understood that by being up on the stage that this was going to open up a can of worms, by him being the first person to ever refuse an Academy Award, and he actually is the only person in history that has ever refused an Academy Award. She explained, which I thought was so interesting, that her appearance to accept the award was not an intrusion, but only one of love and generosity. The conflict that she was having with her, she wanted to show them that she respected them and understood what was going on, but she needed them to understand as well where she was coming from. She followed a lot of the correct steps when trying to resolve her conflict with speaking out on behalf of him. She paused while making her speech. She came back, she grounded herself, and was able to listen to some of the boos and get through that part of the speech, after she announced that he was not going to be accepting the award. Things are not done if people stay silent, and she wanted to make a difference as well as he did. And she was mindful the whole time of the speech, and you could watch the speech on YouTube, of her nonverbal communications. She stayed on track with her speech. She did not get overcome with emotion. She stayed strong. She showed empathy, respect, responsibility for what she was there to do. And although she probably was very nervous and anxious about what was going on, she was forgiving. And that is the most important part of conflict, is the forgiving part. God always teaches us that, you should treat others how you would want to be treated. And it relates to conflict because you should stay calm in every situation. You should relax, and you have to think and reflect on what is important and what is not important. And you will realize exactly what needs to be done, and you will make the overall right decision. When I was researching nonverbal communications and looking up the guide and making a guide for people. I made a guide video for people to watch. It was important for me to let people know that we use nonverbal communication every single day of our lives, and sometimes we don't know it. One of the biggest issues I'd say that we face today is effective communication and respectful communication. If you have respectful communication with someone, there will be resolution. And I think that is what we lack today. And I think that we can get to a point with the right teaching of how to do it, of how to effectively communicate. We have to understand that nonverbal communication is a part of our everyday lives. What I said in my video was some of the most important pointers that I wanted to point out was you should be respectful. You should give someone the correct amount of space. Eye contact is always important unless you are obviously in a foreign country and maybe you cannot understand the person and what they're saying. If their English is broken and you want to read their lips. But you want to stay focused on the conversation because you don't want to be disrespectful or come off as disrespectful. So those were very important in my nonverbal communications guide. Reading up on the Native American culture was fascinating to me, and it really brought up a lot of pointers about stereotyping, and that was the biggest part of what I learned in this class. And what I learned is that stereotyping is never acceptable for anyone to engage in. The Native American culture and community, from what I've learned, although there's been conflict, of course, and that's in every culture, the community is overall about peace, love, and hard work. They have differences and parts about their culture that people would not understand or accept, but overall it must be respected. Throughout time we have seen depictions of Native American culture in media, shown in entertainment. We've seen it on the political stage as of recent. Some have been positive and some have been negative. But it's important to look at the positives over the negatives. Open up your life to learning new things about the way people live and the way they live now. It's important to embrace all surroundings that all cultures have. There might be parts of the Native American culture that can be fascinating that you've never known that you can actually use in your own life. And I think that was the most important thing of what I learned while researching the Native American culture. So I just want to thank you for your time. This has been a great 7 weeks. I have learned so much about this culture, and I want to continue to learn about other cultures and expand my horizons on possibly using things from the Native American culture or other cultures that I will learn about and putting them in my own life. Because it's important to be an eclectic person. It's important to show respect, and it's important to be open to any and all possibilities. So thank you very much.